Helena City Commission meeting, March 14th, 2022, 6 p.m. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. There is a serious echo going on. Our apologies. We'll do this again. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. This meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Interim City Attorney Coate.
Here.
Interim City Manager Joden.
Here.
Commissioner Dean. Here. Commissioner Fever.
Here.
Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Mayor Collins.
Here. Would you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance. Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Consent agenda. A, move to approve resolution designating the environmental certifying officials for the purposes of the citywide WCA Helena CBDG grant number MT-CDBG-CV-22-06. Interim manager.
Mayor and Commissioners, I would recommend approval of this item so we can get Ms. Ray appointed as the environmental certifying official now that Ms. Haugen has retired from the city.
Thank you. Commission discussion, any comments from the commission? If not, do we have any comments from the public? Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
You want a motion?
Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, damn.
I'll move consent agenda item A.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Fever.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Bid award. Move to award the 2022 sidewalk improvement program contract to the contractor All Around Construction LLC for the not to exceed an amount of $150,000. Director Kanapke.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for this bid award tonight. We advertised for this project in December 3 times. We received 2 bids or proposals, and All Around Construction was the lowest of those 2. We recommend this award so that this is the first step in the new revised process of the sidewalk improvement program to get the prices up front. So when we provide estimates to the residents, they know exactly what the prices are going to be, and that estimate should be as accurate as possible. So again, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I do recommend this award of this contract.
Thank you, Director Kanapke. Comments or discussion from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
Please go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Director Crumpy, I know, so in our memo, it says that there's over 250 property owners that would like to participate right now. I also am aware that there was a letter that was sent out to folks who were on the list previously. I believe asking them to reapply. Does that 250 include the folks who were on it before, or those just those who've contacted the city after, I think it was March 1st or something like that?
Mayor and Commissioners, that was the 250 on the waiting list before.
Great.
So those letters went out to those 250 that were on the waiting list to let them know the new process for the sidewalk program. As you know, we can do about 30, maybe depending on the size of the project, 50 projects with 150,000 a year. So we felt it was more advantageous to make sure that we could make this money go farther. And then those property owners would know who was getting their sidewalks done this summer. And then the process would just begin again next year, going out with the same process, and then opening that application period again. And then basically on a first come, first served basis to, as they call us, we go out, we do the estimates. And then once they sign the estimates, that amount comes off of the 150. And then once the budget is expended, then we close that program for the year.
Can I ask a follow-up, Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Do you know, so I guess 2 questions. Are you using the list as it was with the previous wait list, or as people are calling again? And then 2, do we know what the turnaround time is to confirming the folks who contacted us again after March 1st? And just to give you some context, I did talk to a neighbor who had put their name, left a message and sent an email and hadn't heard back yet. This was last week. And so I just want to make sure that when folks start asking, I can let them know what the turnaround time is.
Sure, Mayor and Commissioners, we're trying to get a 72-hour turnaround time, at least to not acknowledge their application, but to tell them and reach out to them and try to schedule an estimate. So as the calls come in, they're logged, and then we call them back in the order that they were received and try to get out there and get those estimates as soon. It's not who was the first that called, it's the people that actually sign the estimate and commit to the program, and not just the calling in. So
Great.
I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, it does.
Any other comments from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do. So, Director, is all around construction located here in town? When I looked it up on Google, it looks like a national organization of some sort. So do they have an office locally?
Mayor and Commissioners, yes, they work in town. They've actually done work for stormwater and public works. They did some ADA ramps last year and some valley gutters. They also have done the sidewalks downtown that you saw in the 300 and 400 block there. As far as I know, they're located in town. That's what the agreement address, I believe, says. So,
Well, I appreciate your having experience with them then. So going forward is a good idea. Thank you.
Any other comments? Do you have any public comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll be happy to move that we award a 2022 sidewalk improvement program contract to All Around Construction LLC.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Fever,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Communications proposals from the commission. What have you? Yes, Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment briefly to thank the first responders and law enforcement who were dealing with a spike of overdoses a few weeks back. I regret that I did not bring it up closer to when it happened, but I did want to take a moment to thank them all for their work during that time. I know overdoses are challenging, And there were quite a number in a very short period of time. So I wanted to thank them. And that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from the commission? Report of the city attorney, Deputy Attorney Coates. Thank you. Report of the interim city manager, Jordan.
Mayor, since we have a rather long agenda, I have nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Communications from Helena Citizens Council. Representative Joe Lehman. Madam Clerk, do we have him on the line?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you. Not too much to report from the HCC. We do have full participation of all the districts, so that's pretty great to see. We're filling up with the committee obligations, getting those assigned. I'm looking forward to meeting with the city in the coming years and working.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the commission? Thanks, Mr. Lehman. Regular items. A, consider amending the current development agreement to add a connection to the existing sewer line at 2245 Head Lane, allowing for the discharge of industrial wastewater from a poultry processing facility into Helena's wastewater system and condition. Director Leland.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We'll go back to the very beginning and to talk about the background. There was a line put in back in 1997 by the fort. It was to serve the fort to get this line. And if I can share my screen, we can show you where we're talking about. This is a sewer line that comes from Fort Harrison and the VA all the way down and across and mainly on Head Lane, and then goes all the way into a lift station that is down by Golden Estates, it was Head Lane's lift station that is down here. Sorry, I drew a blank. And this was put in 1997 by the federal government, but then turned over to the city. And it is controlled by us. And in the process, throughout the years, we've had various residents come and approach us to be able to connect to this line. We've allowed 5 of them to be connected, and recently we denied one that was over on Alfalfa Lane here. The Head Lane one that we're talking about was the very first one that was allowed. It was allowed back in 2002 with Red Meadow Inn for John Ramirez. It has recently been sold, or a few years ago, it's been sold to new owners, and then the name has changed to Oddfellows. So it's Oddfellows Inn out there that has a right to be able to connect to the sewer system for one resident, and then the inn that is out there, and they're asking to amend it to be able to add up to 20,000 poultry processing plant. It is a self-contained one that they're looking at, but they are asking to amend it, and they will also have to apply for the industrial pretreatment program for the city, because this falls within the ordinance and the permit that is issued by the state of Montana. So with that, if you have any questions, they will have to provide some conditions: waiver of right to protest an SID, annexation, connection to the water. Also, they will have to pay a rebate for the lift station that they are connecting to. There's plenty of capacity in both the main right now and also in the lift station. So we do not see anything to prevent this as far as capacity. The only downside of this is it is another connection without annexation, but we do have a waiver of right to annex. So with that, I'd answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Leland. Comments or questions from the commission? All right.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do have one question, or maybe more than one. How big an operation is this? I mean, I have no idea.
I'm sure when they come, it will be their time to come over.
Yeah.
Well, you can.
So To start, it's really small. So we'll be operating under the producer grower exemption, which allows up to 20,000 units without having to be a full state certified or have an inspector on site while you're processing. So while we are applying for the full 20,000, this first year we'll probably do about 1,200 birds. So maybe once a month during the summertime.
So I don't, 20,000 what again?
Birds. So so we raise chickens, ducks, geese, turkey, quail. So specialty poultry that you normally can't get from anywhere around here. We don't have another small free range poultry producer nearby. So that's one of the niches that we fill.
Well, I appreciate you telling me that. So do you plan to ramp up to 100,000, 200,000? Is this
No,
a large-
no, we don't plan on doing that. We couldn't under the license that we're applying for anyways. And we also just don't have the capacity. Keep in mind, we're still an operating inn and we have our restaurant out there. So we're very cognizant of smell, feather pollution, things like that. So we do keep it, the free range so that reduces a lot of that, but no, nowhere near that number.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll ask one more, then I'll be quiet. So from whom do you get a license to have a poultry operation?
From the state of Montana, the Department of Livestock.
All right. Thank you very much.
It looks like you finished taking over public comments now, Commissioner. So any other comments from the commission? If not, we'll turn it over to
Mr.
the
Mayor.
public. Oh,
Sorry, can I ask Ms. Director Leland a question?
sure.
Okay, Director Leland, I know that we had a property that had asked to tap into, I believe, this same line a little while ago, and the commission denied that. Just confirming that this property is already accessing the wastewater from this line, correct?
Mayor, Commissioner, yes, you are correct. We did have a new residence that was denied, but this is an existing connection that they already have and just looking to amend it to be able to add the additional wastewater from this poultry processing plant.
Okay, thanks. Just want to make sure we had that on the record.
All right. Comments from the public? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, if I might interrupt, could I have you state your name for the record, please?
Jared Ingalls.
Thank you.
No comments from the public. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Paul Maybe. I'm the other owner. I would just like to make one comment. Just to clarify one thing, we already do have the poultry processing center that was made possible by help through the state of Montana Department of Agriculture. And so this is the final piece of this from us being able to hook up to city sewer that will allow us to start to bring our free range poultry here to the market, bring some new jobs to Helena, and also fix some of the food supply problems associated with that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion now.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, Commissioner Dean, was that you?
I was going to make just a quick comment and then you go for the motion.
All right.
I just really briefly wanted to mention that I think that this is a really neat project. This is actually a great opportunity to improve the sustainability of our food sources within here in the Helena area, and really excited that there's folks being this innovative in Lewis and Clark County. So very, very much looking forward to buying my produce more locally.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we consider amending the current development agreement to add a connection to the existing sewer line at 2245 Head Lane, allowing for the discharge of industrial wastewater from a poultry processing facility into Helena wastewater system with conditions.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Fever,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Consider a resolution conditionally permitting angled parking along Vandelay Avenue between Sanders Street and Oak Street. Director Kanopke.
Good evening again, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good evening.
This is a request that came from the developer of the Capitol Hill Mall site. They're requesting angled parking along Vandelay between Sanders and Oaks. Per City Code 811-3C requires angled parking only permitted where designated by a resolution of the City Commission. This is in conformance to what we have looked at from them. We did add some conditions to this. Those 5 conditions, the first is that the amended plat dedicating Vandelay Avenue public right-of-way be filed with the county recorder. Number 2, the maintenance agreement satisfactory to the city be signed by the property owners adjacent to the dedicated Vandelay Avenue between Sanders Street and Oaks. That maintenance agreement came out of our discussions that the adjacent property owners or the developer would be maintaining the snow plowing during the winter because our plows can't get into some of those small spaces that they were proposing at the time. Number 3, installation at no cost to the city, at least one accessible angled parking stall with the accompanying access aisle on the north side of Vandelay. Number 4, installation at no cost to the city, at least 2 accessible angled parking stalls with the accompanying access aisles on the south side of Vandelay, or 1 on Vandelay and 1 on Oaks. And then installation of signage per the city engineering standards. I believe that there's a representative on the line from the developer, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any comments or questions from the commission? Is there a representative online?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Greg Worth, WIRTH with Staley Engineering at 3530 Centennial Drive. A little past history on the project. The City Commission did accept the right-of-way dedication of Oak Street and Vandelay Avenue on December 6th of 2021. Sanders Street and the western portion of Vandelay at the site was dedicated in 2020. This is the request to allow the angled parking on Vandelay between Sanders Street and Oak Street, and it was the basis of the 66-foot wide right-of-way that was approved by the City Commission on December 6th of 2021. We reviewed the staff report, the draft resolution, and the conditions as presented can be accommodated by the development. DNN development, Opportunity Bank and Benefits, as people are aware, are the current 3 entities looking at developing the site. The site planning is in progress in consideration of the angled parking as presented. So we request approval to permit the angled parking along Vandelay as condition, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Worth. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
Please.
I'm just curious, Mr. Worth, what is the timeline for Opportunity and Benefits in terms of them getting their portions developed?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner Reed. Timeline is, I'd say, immediate. The amended plat will, as approved, will be delivered to City Planning Department tomorrow. We're scheduled to send in the plans, revised plans for Opportunity Bank to the architect tomorrow. The plans for the infrastructure plans for Vandelay Avenue and Oak Street are currently under review at DEQ right now. We expect to have approval back this week. The developer is working on engaging with the contractor, Helena Sand and Gravel, to build the infrastructure. Benefits is currently in design. We are scheduled to complete our plans and submit for a building permit in mid-April. Things are rapidly progressing, so there should be quite a bit of activity on the site this summer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Worth. And for the record, it was Commissioner Dean, not Reed.
Oh, well, excuse me, I meant to address all commissioners.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the commission? Do we have any public comments? Madam Clerk, any online? I'll entertain a motion.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll be happy to move this, that we consider a resolution conditionally permitting angle parking along Vandelay Avenue between Sanders Street and Oak Street.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would just comment, again, I've said this when we did the right of way adoption before, really appreciate the developer working with staff and the commission to get to this place, and very excited to see this property developed, and visit Starbucks all the time already there. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Fever,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed. Was that a,
She said,
That was an aye, sorry.
thank you. Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Charlie, move to approve a resolution distributing Railroad Urban Renewal District Tax Increment Financing Fund to the Bell Hotel LLC for the demolition project at 40 East Lindale Avenue. Interim Manager Jordan.
Mayor Collins, Commissioners, this is a request for TIF funding, for railroad TIF funding to help fund the demolition of the Memorial Park Apartments, and Ellie Ray is here with more details.
You have the floor, Ms. Ray.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and Interim City Manager Joden. As Interim City Manager Joden just said, this is a request for funding for $175,000 for the demolition of Memorial Park Apartments. These are currently in the ownership of Buck Ray, who's entered into a land lease agreement with the owners of the Bell Hotel LLC, Carly Mosey and Ashley Tubbs, who may be in the audience with you tonight. This property has been sitting vacant since 2016. It is in a state of disrepair, and as such, it's not able to be rehabbed. And therefore, it has been awaiting a ripe opportunity for demolition and abatement. There are some hazardous materials on site, so that is the abatement portion of the project. They came forward with their application in December, and we brought it to the Railroad Tax Increment Financing Advisory Board at their January 20th meeting, and all members unanimously recommended approval of funding in the amount of $175,000 toward this effort, having compared it against state statute that allows for demolition of lighted structures, as well as the work plan for the Railroad Urban Renewal District that prioritizes demolition activities. The applicants are hoping that they'll be able to start the demolition and abatement work this spring, and actually finish with the construction of the boutique hotel that they're looking to build by the end of the building season in 2023. So that is the project. And with that, I will happily take any questions you have. I believe that Carly Mosey or Ashley Tubbs are available in chambers to answer any questions you may have of them. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you, Ms. Ray. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
Please, go
For
ahead.
Ms. Ray. Ms. Ray, I'm curious, I know this is, I think, going to be the largest amount that, if approved, it's going to be the largest amount of TIF dollars that we have approved as a commission in the last 2 years. Can you explain to me, do we have any type of process to ensure plans are carried out as we award the funds? So for example, say we award these funds, how do we ensure that the property is developed or that is completed? Is there any sort of checks and balances? I'm not necessarily concerned about this project, but we're setting precedent, obviously, with this large of an amount. And so moving forward, if there are other projects, how do we ensure that the funds are spent accordingly and projects are done to completion?
Sure, Mayor, Commissioners, what I would say to that is, well, I defer all questions about the business plan directly to the Bell Hotel LLC partners. In the first instance, this is the largest project for any of our TIF districts thus far. The only demolition project that has been funded to date was a match of 50% toward an $8,000 demolition project. So $4,000 went out the door to demolish an old barn in the Railroad District a couple of years ago now. So that's a point well taken. As far as the redevelopment of the site, the funding request in this instance is only for the demolition and abatement, and whether the applicant, Bell Hotel LLC, are actually able to move forward with the construction activities they have planned. It's a sincere hope that they will be able to get their capital stack together and make that work. And again, I defer to them to tell you more about what they're planning to do with that financing. But this particular application just clears the way for any future development, and they understand the risks that they're undertaking and partnering on this effort in the event that they are not able to move forward with their development, redevelopment, I should say. But this application is going to be a huge catalyst, not just for the railroad district, but also for the downtown district. And we sincerely hope that they are successful in their endeavors. And if they are not, that this is, again, it's been vacant, the Memorial Park Apartments, for 6 years. So this will be a huge undertaking, and hopefully, even if they're not able to develop, another entity will be able to step forward to do that with the clean slate.
Yep.
Mayor Collins, I would also add, Commissioner Dean, that per the resolution, Bell Hotel will have to enter into an agreement acceptable to the city that covers their obligations and ensuring that the money is used for the purpose approved by the commission.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
Well, Mr. Mayor, this is a project that needs to be done. I'm glad it's here in front of us, and I don't think there's a single penny here that's not well spent. So I'm looking forward to it going forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Public comments. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I
Go ahead,
will.
Commissioner.
Oh, sorry. I'll move to approve resolution distributing Railroad Urban Renewal District tax increment financing funds to the Bell Hotel LLC for a demolition project at 40 East Lindale Avenue.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would just note, I think as Commissioner Fever noted, this is a really incredible project, not just for the Railroad TIF district, but for downtown as well. Truly is the center of our community right there. I think it's going to be great for everyone that likes to enjoy Memorial Park and Centennial Park as well. And wishing luck to the applicants. I think it's going to be an amazing addition to Helena.
Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Fever,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, Delta move to approve a resolution of intention to annex a 9.123 acre portion of the tract A1, 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 A1 of the amended plat of the crossroad at Mountain View Meadows subdivision number 3386391 as shown on the preliminary plat for Aspen Park number 2 minor subdivision into the city of Helena, Montana, and establish conditions for annexation. Planner McConnell.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. With the permission, the next series of items on the agenda for Aspen Park number 2 will be presented as one because only the pre-zone requires a public hearing. In fact, the subdivision per state law, we cannot hold a public hearing for. So that's kind of the reason we're doing things a bit differently, and I'll explain that briefly in a second. Hopefully this also cuts down some time between the presentations.
Would you speak up, please, Mr. McConnell?
Sure, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
So first, I'm going to do the presentations for all three of these items as one, and then the rest of the process tonight will be as follows. So like I said, it's a bit different than how maybe we normally do it. So if anyone has any questions as we go through this as to where we're at or what is appropriate at the time, feel free to answer those, and we'll be happy to get on our way with that.
Thank you.
So here is a vicinity map showing the Aspen Park number 2 It's adjacent to city limits. It's also part of the wider Mountain View Meadows development, as we can see here out on the east side of town. Before getting into the specifics for each item, generally speaking, this is what the property is like out there. It is 9.1 acres. Currently, it's vacant. It's not within the city limits. It's also zoned urban residential mixed use. It's important to note that there are no use or dimensional standards associated with that district currently. And it is just west of the State Highway 282 and Runkle Parkway intersection, if we're familiar with that area of town. So first, we'll go through the analysis for the annexation portion of the project. Really what we're talking about when annexation is, can we provide the property city services? And if not, what conditions can we offer to be able to offer those services? So the property is, as I said, adjacent to city limits with the required infrastructure in adjacent rights of way. If annexed, this property will be served with all city services, including police, fire, and once developed, solid waste. This map shows water in blue, stormwater in purple and yellow, and wastewater lines in green, so that the commission can get a better idea of kind of what's out there. Being adjacent to the property will obviously facilitate easier connections to those services. So this map that you see is a snippet from the development constraints map from the growth policy. This shows really no risks from wildfire or liquefaction on or near this project site. There is the potential for up to 3,300 new vehicle trips per day, and that's based on an internal calculation for zoning. The applicant has submitted as part of their minor subdivision application a TIS that does estimate 234 trips based on their intended use. And despite these new trips, all of the intersections nearby will continue to operate at a level of service C or better. So the growth policy is generally supportive of projects like this. This is a snip from the future land use map showing an urban designation. You can see that the orange is urban and the pink is mixed use. And that indicates that this property is intended to be built out with a potential higher density or use that is of higher density. This particular parcel or neighborhood is not part of a neighborhood planning area, although there are several growth policy goals and objectives that this project would support, mainly with the efficient provision of services and different kinds of housing, the provision of housing, diversity of the housing stock, etc. So there are a number of conditions that staff is recommending as part of this annexation. Most of them are standard comments, but standard conditions rather, although number 2 and 3 are specific to this subdivision and annexation project. And that's Alpine View be dedicated as public right-of-way and built to the City of Engineering standards for a local road. Alpine View is on the east side of this proposed project site. And Twilight Avenue, which is on the west side, be built to city engineering standards for a local road. The other conditions, as I said, are standard conditions relating to review of new construction, taxes, and then the overall completion of the conditions. So moving along, we'll get right into the subdivision or the minor subdivision portion of this application. Since there are some new commissioners, I thought it best to provide this little kind of cheat sheet for a minor subdivision. They have the same initial review process, but where one of the main differences is the 35 working day timeline for a commission decision. Some of you might remember 2 or 3 commission meetings ago, this came before you for an extension, and that's why. So things that are not required with a minor subdivision, we cannot hold a public hearing. It does not require a planning board hearing, so there's no recommendation from that body. The applicant does not provide a full review of the 608 criteria, although they do provide a summary of what they believe will be the probable impacts. And we will go into those here in just a moment. So here's the original preliminary plat for Aspen Park number 1 from 2005. While this entire area encompasses Aspen Park number 1, only the part that is called out with a heavier black line was final platted, and those were 41 lots. And you can see the subject property outlined in red. So what the applicant is proposing, it will technically be a 3-lot minor subdivision with 2 lots being annexed into the city and 1 lot staying in Lewis and Clark County and will be part of future phases of the Mountain View Meadows development. So the majority of that lot, I think it's 139 acres or so, will remain in the county. Lot 2 is intended for the actual multifamily development that is being proposed, and lot 1 will be a privately held open space. So the summary, the submitted summary of impacts and internal reviews identified impacts. They were to only the local services section, and those impacts are projected to be minor. The applicant does anticipate, like I said, 234 trips per day as a result of the completion of this proposal. Although in the internal estimates are anywhere up to 3,300 new trips based on the R4 zoning that is being proposed. So there will be increased demand, decreased capacity to the city's water and wastewater systems as a result of this project, though it's not anticipated to have much impact overall on those systems. Parkland was dedicated via a previous phase of Mountain View Meadows, but they would have been required to donate just over 3,500 square feet of parkland space. Like the water and sewer, it is anticipated that the impacts to other city services, being police, fire, solid waste, when it develops, will be minimal, just on the overall size of the project and its scope. So staff is proposing the following impacts, or sorry, the following conditions rather, and they mirror the the annexation conditions with one addition, and that is an easement must be created and dedicated to the City of Helena for some stormwater infrastructure located on lot 1, and that's prior to final plat approval. That's all I have for the minor subdivision. We'll talk about the review criteria for the pre-zone, which is here. I'm not going to recite each one of them, though it's broken down in the staff report the narrative is broken down by the review criteria. So just keep these in mind as we go through the presentation, and if anyone needs at the end to come back to this, just say so and we can definitely do that. So the property is proposed to be zone R4 upon annexation. This is our highest density residential zone district with a 42-foot max height and no minimum lot size. So as it relates to the review criteria, a lot of the heavy lifting as it relates to that criteria are accomplished through other codes or requirements that the city has adopted. You can see a few of them here, chiefly being the zoning code, building codes, the engineering standards. The International Fire Code does relate to the structure, but also the overall development of the site, ensuring proper fire suppression, water flow for fire suppression, emergency vehicle ingress, egress, as well as aspects related to the road width. But in a broad sense, the Helena City Code is the basis for the protection of Helena, its citizens, their property. The city zoning code, chapter 11, utilizes different dimensional standards to help protect properties, heights, setbacks, lot coverage, parking or landscaping standards are all contribute to the safety of properties and an aid in the provision of light and air to those properties. Motorized and non-motorized transportation impacts do, however, vary greatly based on the zone district proposed. Internally, we use a trip generation method that assumes several different uses within a parcel, and that's regardless of any plan that is presented. This is because zoning a parcel, in this case to R4, would allow the owner of the property to have any use that is allowed within the R4 district on that property. So the uses that we assume will be present on site as part of this trip generation method is low and moderate density residential, and a restaurant use will also be present on site. And using that model, we project or estimate that up to 3,300 new trips could come from this 9-acre site. Like I said earlier, the applicant did submit a traffic impact study. They estimate up to 234 new trips at full build out. And regardless, all the intersections will continue to operate at their level C or better. The applicant will, as a condition of annexation, construct sidewalks along the frontages of the property, which will connect to the wider non-motorized transportation network, providing connectivity throughout the development. So the remaining review criteria they relate to compatible development, character of the district overall, and encouraging the most appropriate uses. Right, and this map you can see is from the growth policy again, and it shows the type of development that we expect to see. So orange identifies an urban style of development, and pink shows where mixed use would be more appropriate. In this case, outlined in red is the subject property is shown as being appropriate for urban style developments, and this would include multifamily uses that are allowed in R3. And this is generally consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. So this map shows current build outs as of the latest update to the growth policy. Green represents either ag lands or other low density residential developments. As I said, most of this area is still within Lewis and Clark County, but it is building out at a rapid rate with mostly residential uses. Also, there are a number of commercial uses kind of closer to Highway 12 as part of Mountain View Meadows. So the orange represents areas of town that are built up to urban densities already, and this property, if annexed and zoned in the manner proposed, will also be represented in a similar fashion. So this is the zoning map, and as you can see, R4, shown in the darker orange, is the most prevalent zone district in the area. This property would be an extension of that district. Just to the east is a bit of R3. It's a slightly lower residential or urban density residential district. The subject property is also within the urban standards boundary. This boundary does represent properties or areas of the city where it would be most appropriate to build out to those densities, and where the city can most easily serve the newly annexed properties due to the presence of existing infrastructure. So that's all I have for this item. And this is a rehash of the slide from the second slide, I believe, just showing our progress. So at this point, if there are any questions from the commissioners, I'd be happy to answer those at this time. If not, then the public hearing can be open for comment. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor.
McConnell.
Mr. Mayor, I have just a procedural question and then maybe another one later on here. What is the difference between two regular items and a public hearing when they're compressed into one presentation?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I did not hear the question.
respect to the zoning, you have to have or a public hearing with the other two items related to this property. These items are so similar that I think I do the presentation for all of the items together rather than doing three presentations.
Okay, well, I guess that makes sense. Maybe it makes more sense now than it did when I first heard they were going to be condensed here tonight. And so I appreciate that. So just speaking to then item E, what is a future phase lot? What does that mean?
Mr. Mayor, before there's an answer, could I just suggest whoever was speaking just prior to Commissioner Fever, their mic doesn't appear to be on and we can't hear them at all.
Okay,
Maybe I wasn't pressing it hard enough.
okay.
Now I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
All right. I'll just repeat. Basically, what I told Commissioner Fever is that there are certain processes by law that require a public hearing. And in connection with this development, the zoning process requires a public hearing, whereas the annexation and the preliminary plat, the annexation does not require one. And in fact, with the preliminary plat, because it's a minor subdivision, you cannot have a public hearing by law.
Thank you.
Nothing like a prohibition. So I appreciate that. Again, what is a,
Commissioner Fever,
Excuse me.
when we get to E, then you can ask the question, but we have to go down the line. And then when we get to it, because I know you were talking about something on item E, right?
you want to do D first, then Mr. Mayor?
We'll,
is it-
we'll start with A, B, C, and then when we get there, you can ask your question. You see what I'm talking about?
No, because we already acted on A, B, C, and we've done that. We haven't acted on D and E and A. But I'll be glad to have you guide me through it here as you wish.
Okay.
If I could jump in.
What was that, Mr. McConnell?
If I could jump in real quick.
Please.
It's the intention to act on item A in the public hearing portion, then D, then E.
Oh,
Right. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, I see where you're going. I suppose that I'll learn all these protocols and, you know, if you will, the way we itemize things as we move forward here in time. Thank you.
Commissioner Dean.
thanks, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question, and I don't know, Mr. McConnell can probably answer this, but I see the applicant in the back too, who might be able to answer as well. There was just an article in the IR about the development, and I know that I can foresee questions coming of, is this the same as the commercial center that the IR ran a story on? I don't believe it is, but I would just like to make sure for the public record that it's two different things.
Right.
Mr. McConnell, can you confirm that?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Dean, this is not, to my knowledge, a commercial project in any way. I'm not sure what article was in the IR, but this is. I
Mr.
don't
Mayor,
believe that.
would it be okay if Mr. Runkle confirmed that?
It was confirmed by Mr. McConnell, right?
He said he wasn't sure what was in the article. I just want to make sure for the record that people will not be confused.
Sure. You have the floor, Mr. Runkle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Yes, this is part of the residential area, not the commercial area that had the article on the Sunday paper.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, we'll open public hearings for item A. The floor is open for public comments.
Mayor and Commissioners, Mark Runkle, I'm the developer of Mountain View Meadows at 431 South Alice Street. And just a couple of brief comments about this area. It is, my engineer is ill tonight, so I'm all you've got, except I think he is on Zoom. But we feel that this is a great owner occupied project. It'll actually have 16 single level, 12 to 1,800 square foot duplex condos on it. So 32 owner occupied living units. These all, you saw the serpentine shape of the street, which I think is about 800 feet. All of these units are designed for this area. They have, they back onto two different drainages, open spaces, which and they have an outdoor living space built into them. So they'll be very desirable. They'll take a minimum amount of infrastructure since they're duplexes, share a wall, and they're built relatively close together. And so that should produce strong tax values and a very good revenue for our schools and county and the city of Helena. Rebecca and I are quite excited about this area. It's a small part of the development, but on the other hand, it's kind of a special thing. It wasn't envisioned in the original master plan, but with the things we've learned and seen other places, and that we've found that the market wants here, we think it's going to be an excellent little addition to the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Runkle. Comments or questions from the commission? Thank you, Mr. Runkle.
Okay, thank you.
Then I'll entertain them. Mr. Coates, do we do the motion for this one and then we hit Delta?
Mr. Mayor, if you have no more public comment, you'll need to close the public hearing and then you can entertain a motion.
Good. Okay, at this time, the public comments is closed and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I move to approve an ordinance pre-zoning prior to annexation to R4 residential for property legally described as 9.123 acre portion of tract A1, 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 A1 of the amended plat of the crossroads at Mountain View subdivision, Mountain View Meadows subdivision document number 3386391.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk.
Apologies, Mr. Mayor. You got ahead of me. Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Fever.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item Delta. Am I right? That's the next one?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Mayor, that's the next one. And
Okay,
we're available for any questions from the commission. And if none, then public comment.
thank you, Mr. McConnell. Do we have any comments or questions from the commission? Public comments? Okay, no other comments from any final discussion? None. Madam Clerk, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, sir.
I move to approve a resolution of intention to annex a 9.123 acre portion of tract A1, 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 A1 of the amended plat of the crossroads at Mountain View Meadows subdivision document number 3386391 as shown on the preliminary plat for Aspen Park number 2 minor subdivision into the city of Helena, Montana, and establish conditions for annexation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Fever.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on regular item Echo E? Discussion from the commission,
Mr. Mayor, I do have one question.
please.
This is probably for Mr. McConnell. I apologize if you said this during the presentation. Does it come back to us for the final approval of the final plat?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Dean, yes, it will.
Okay, thanks.
Any
So-
other comments?
So, Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask my question.
Please.
What does it mean to have a future phase lot of 139 plus acres?
Attorney Coates, you want to?
I can answer that, Mr. Mayor, if you like.
Okay, sorry. Mr. McConnell, please.
Sure. A future phase just means in this case specifically, I suppose, that it's not, it has not been reviewed as part of this subdivision. The majority of that future phase lot was viewed during the preliminary plat for the Crossroads Amendment. So it's just not being annexed, so we can't include it.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure I understood what Mr. McConnell said. But I guess my question really boils down to, is this now something that will someday be for us as a developing property for annexation into the city? Or is this if you will, the preface to annexing 139.91 acres that are undeveloped into the city? Just asking.
Well, friend. Go ahead, Mr. Coates.
I'll see if I could explain this. So what the applicant is proposing is to subdivide one parcel into smaller lots. Some of those lots are being considered to be annexed tonight into the city of Helena, whereas there is 139.91 acres that will remain in the county and potentially in the future might come into the city of Helena, but it's going to remain in the county. It's not part of this annexation.
So that is how I read it, and I'm glad to have that verbal affirmation of what I thought we were doing here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, just one comment.
Please.
And I feel like I should say this every time something from Mountain View Meadows comes to us, but I do appreciate the effort that the developer takes in incremental steps and learning from what they've done. This has come before this commission since I've been on it a number of times, a few different areas of Mountain View Meadows. And I think that it has proved to be a really effective way to develop an area like this. And I'm appreciative of the thoughtfulness that's gone into it.
Thanks for that comment, Commissioner, and I agree with you. I think it just makes so much sense for everybody. So any other comments from the commission? If not, Madam Clerk. Oh, did we do? I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Please go ahead, Commissioner.
getting good at this A1 thing, so I'll just keep going. I would move to conditionally approve, let me make sure I'm on the right one.
Yeah,
Conditionally approve the preliminary plat for the Aspen Park 2 minor subdivision creating 2 lots and street right-of-way containing 9.123 acres and 1 future phase lot containing 139.91 acres, and to adopt the findings of fact and the conditions contained therein for the property legally described as a tract A1, 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 as shown on certificate of survey number 3386391 in the records of the clerk and recorder of Lewis and Clark County, Montana, generally located 0.16 miles west of the State Highway 282 and Runkle Parkway intersection.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion from the commission? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Fever,
All right.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Mr. McConnell? Did we go through Bravo and Charlie?
Yes, sir.
Huh? You have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you again. Kings Common is only a pre-zone and annexation. It also has a much shorter legal description. So hopefully those can contribute to being a little quicker than the last one. This is located on the northern boundary of the city, just east of Highway 15. Again, we're going to be doing this a little bit differently than we might normally do. This is the process, and we'll come back to it, much like we did for the last set of items. So this is the vicinity map for showing the larger area with zone districts included. We'll discuss zoning in a moment as we go forward in the presentation. I'm sure everyone will have noticed the Helena Valley Irrigation Canal does run through the middle of this property, though for the zoning, it doesn't substantially impact the analysis except for one way, and I'll talk about that here momentarily. The property is 36.5 acres. It is again zoned urban residential mixed use, and there are no standards associated with that zone district as of yet. So first we'll talk about pre-zone and then go into the annexation. Again, this is the pre-zone review criteria. So just keep these in mind kind of as we go through. So in this case, the applicant is proposing a zone district designation of B2. And a lot of the same information applies to this property as it would to any other. We evaluate the zoning in much the same manner when it comes to how the city administers and enforces our standards and regulations to protect residents and property. The building code, zoning code, fire codes, engineering standards all go into that and ensure basic service provision, emergency access, etc. The zoning code, for example, has specific dimensional standards for parking or parking standards for each zone district. So that's why that portion of it will be potentially different. B2 is the most generous of our districts with no setbacks or lot size, minimum lot size requirement. And B2 does have a height limit of 75 feet and allows a wide range of uses. So like I said, motorized and non-motorized transportation impact will vary greatly based on the district proposed. Internally, we're going to use that same methodology to determine our internal trip numbers. The assumed uses to be present on site for that model include both medium and high density residential, office spaces, retail spaces, and a restaurant use on site. So using this model, there is the potential for 41,000 new trips per day from this entire 36-acre site. So the model does not take into account the fact that the canal does split the property. It's essentially dead space. You can't build on it. So that will lower that number significantly. The applicant did submit a traffic study. It's based on their projected multifamily use, and that's to add 1,500 new trips per day at full build out. The applicant's TIS did also provide an analysis based on the potential commercial uses that are allowed in B2, and it projected up to 4,200 new trips, and that's based on a business park use. So based on all these numbers, well, the applicant submitted TIS. All of the intersections in the area will continue to operate at a level C or better. The applicant will, as a condition of annexation, much of the last one, be required to construct sidewalks along the frontages of the property, which will connect to a wider non-motorized network as it currently exists, and also provide critical future connection points as this area builds out a bit more. So the remaining criteria are again fairly subjective, related to compatible development, character of the district, and appropriate uses. So this map is again from the growth policy and shows the general type of development the city expects to see in and around the city limits. In this case, the subject property, which is outlined in yellow, shown as being appropriate for commercial developments. This type of district, as defined in the growth policy, as being appropriate for high-end or high-density residential developments as well as commercial. So this map shows the current build-outs as of the latest growth policy update. The blue represents public or institutional uses. In this case, there is a stormwater pond and sewage treatment plant to the east and a county gravel pit to the north, which for what it's worth is also zone B2. So green represents the ag or vacant or low density residential developments. A more current map would show the property immediately to the south, not as green, but as either red or orange, as it's recently been built out with a similar type higher density residential development. B2, this is our general commercial zone. And if you look at this zoning map, you'll see that B2 in red is the most common zone district in that area of town. B2 allows all types of commercial uses, including restaurants, offices, various retail and service oriented uses, as well as all types of residential uses. Kings Common development is intended to be a medium to high density residential use. As you can see, B2 is already present in the neighborhood in a significant way. So this subject property is within the urban standards boundary. That boundary again represents areas ideal for annexation, provide ideal connection points for our transportation network, as well as other city services like water and wastewater. The next, we'll talk briefly about the annexation. So the subject property, like I said, is adjacent to city limits. Both water and sewer connections are across frontage drive, as shown on this utility map. These lines will be required to be extended across the frontages of the property if annexed. This property will also be served by the City of Helena Police, Fire, and once it develops, solid waste services potentially as well. The property is located in an area with a moderate risk of liquefaction and low level wildfire risk. While there is the potential for a large amount of trips, car trips to be generated from this site if zone B2 and developed with various uses associated with that district, it is estimates from the applicant do say you provide a window between 1,500 and 4,200 new trips per day. And the surrounding road network is projected to be able to handle the new influx of traffic associated with the submitted plan. This is the future land use map. Like I said, commercial is what the growth policy intends and anticipates for this area and specific properties to be. As you can see, there's no neighborhood plan associated with this area to provide specific goals for the property, but this project does align with the growth policy goals and objectives, much like the last item did with the provision of housing, diversity of housing, easy connections to city services, and providing those transportation lanes, both motorized and non-motorized. So that's all I have for the pre-zone and annexation presentations. Now, if the mayor would like to open up on the public hearing for the pre-zone, if there are no commissioner questions.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. At this time, the floor is open for public hearing on item B. And clerk, do we have anybody online?
Mr. Mayor, I see no hands raised and I've received no written public comment online.
Okay, at this time we'll close the public comments. Commission discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm glad that Commissioner Dean did that and not I. Anyway, Mr. Mayor, I do have one question. And during the zoning commission discussion on this, one of the participants in that discussion asked if this, the architecture here was unique to this spot. Well, I thought that was an interesting question, and I have no idea what that means because I don't know what the architecture of the buildings or the structures has to do with this issue. But do you know what that means?
No, Commissioner, I don't.
Mr. Mayor, if I might jump in, I know the applicant is available for comments. I believe they are wanting to address the commission as well.
Who's there? Who's available, Mr. McConnell?
I believe Mark Perriman is in the room right now.
Mr. Perriman, please come.
Hello.
Yes.
Mr. Perriman, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I just thought that was an interesting comment during the zoning commission discussion.
Mayor and commissioners, I'm not sure where the comment came from. I mean, I think I know the gentleman that brought it up. And maybe it's more of a personal preference on what they feel buildings should look like in relation. I mean, it seemed like the discussion brought up maybe adding some gables or some make the buildings a little more unique than what they are.
Well, I also recall from the zoning commission that this discussion probably didn't last long, but there apparently Billings, Missoula, other locations do have this kind of architecture, but Bozeman doesn't. And so the question was kind of why doesn't Bozeman have this kind of architecture? Now, you can answer that as you see fit, because it obviously wasn't your question, but I don't know that the commission speaks to architecture unless somebody apprises me of that. I don't know that that's our job, but it was just an interesting question. It kind of leaped off the page at me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can respond to that. I mean, I thought it was a very strange question that came up at a zoning or annexation type discussion. I mean, that would seem like it'd be more at the commission level, but I mean, it's just the design is like a personal preference thing. I mean, whether somebody doesn't like colors, or if they don't like the style or the look or whatever. So I don't know how to respond to, personal preferences from individuals.
Right.
On what stuff looks like. I mean, I know these deals that we're building, this is probably, as King's Common, I've been doing projects for this owner from Billings now for close to 5 years. And this will be the 5th and 6th project that are basically the same size. They're about 100-unit apartment buildings. And these have morphed a little bit. I mean, the early on ones looked a little more plain. They've taken that into account and added more gables in and changed stuff up a little bit. And I think they've gotten more attractive as we've gone along. But these projects are, in my opinion, very well received by the general public. I mean, people love living in them. I mean, they like them. There's open spaces, green spaces in between. They call it a high density development, but I mean, to me, it's a medium to low density development. I mean, the houses look like they're packed in together, but the density has to do with, I believe, the number of people that live on a spot. Now, these deals are, I mean, there is waiting lists to get into these deals way before we're done with them, which leads me to believe that people really enjoy living in. In fact, I have some acquaintances and friends that live in some of them, and they said they love them. So I don't, where the personal preference
So
comes
Mr.
in.
Mayor, if I may,
Please.
I'll ask a question and then you're off the hook. Is there anything like this in Helena around that somebody can go look at?
Yeah, absolutely. Where the first project we did was down at the end of Green Meadow. I think there was 176 units down there in 2 phases. The Sleeping Giant project are the same type buildings that is right adjacent to the bowling alley. Or right above it, just to the south. The one we're currently working on is just to the north of Super One Foods. And this King's Common, there are 2 more phases of this. That's what we're considering here. And they're just to the north, just over the frontage road. So I mean, if you wanted to look at them, the ones down at Super One Foods, basically this King's Common will be just an extension of this Queen's Anne project that we're just finishing up now. We're finishing up the last couple of buildings. So, yeah, there's definitely an example out there. And
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pearman.
Yeah. Any other
Okay.
questions? I am still around.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
I had a question. It struck me when I was reading through the packet that the request is a B2 instead of R4, and I'm just wondering if you can talk about why.
Well, and I apologize. So I'm, once again, my engineer, that's the same engineer that Mark Runkle had, is ill tonight, and he was scheduled to make the presentation. So kind of caught me by surprise, but no, I was at the Zoom meeting when that came up. They had a discussion, and so the zoning in the area is the prevalent zoning. What I think engineers try to do is not to do spot zoning for certain things. So if you look in the area on the larger zoning map, everything around it is zoned the way we're planning on zoning this. So you're trying to keep the zoning consistent in a certain area. So that was the reason for it. And one of them brought up why they didn't think this zoning was appropriate, but there was some discussion, and then it was that spot zoning deal that came up, and then I think everybody at the zoning board was comfortable with that then.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. Mayor, but the intent is that you'll be building multifamily units, not necessarily commercial units.
No, 100%. No, they're single level. Each one of them has its own attached garage. They're very low. I mean, when you put that many units together, it looks like an apartment complex, and it is, but it's not a high rise. I mean, it's just, everything is very simple. The owner tries to keep these deals as simple as he can to address the need for affordable housing. If the fancier you make things, the less affordable it becomes. So like, he tries to keep it so it's very livable. People like it. People want to move in. They're not cheap deals. They're quality units, but yeah, that's, the owner's very cognizant of that he's got a template that he's done a lot, and he works South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana. He's from Billings. He's built a lot of these projects in Billings, and it seems to be like a very well received deal from affordability standpoint, workforce housing type deal. And that's something I believe that I've heard every one of you commissioners say.
Yes,
that's something that we really need, is try to solve that affordable housing project in Helena. So
you bet.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the commission? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, if I could. Did you close the public hearing
Yes.
portion? Okay, thank you.
Yes, thanks. It's right here.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would, sorry about that, move to approve an ordinance pre-zoning prior to annexation to B2, general commercial, for property legally described as tract B1, as shown on certificate of survey filed under document number 3203658.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any final discussion from the commission? Madam Clerk? Oh. Not now, sir. We'll move. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Fever,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. We'll now address Charlie. And Mr. McConnell, you did discuss both of them, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're now open for public comment, our public hearing on item C. Do we have any online, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I have no one online wishing to speak on this matter.
Okay. At this time, we'll close the public comments. Commission discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
I think Mr. McConnell can answer this, but I don't know if Mr. Leland's still on either. This is the first time that we've had an item come to us that is proposed to be essentially an apartment complex. And I'm wondering if someone could explain what happens with some of the water and wastewater infrastructure and funding upgrades that will eventually have to happen, let's say 20 years from now, 50 years from now. How does that work on these type of developments?
Commissioner Dean, that's definitely a question for Director Leland.
Dr. Leland, if you're still on, you have the floor.
Mayor, Commissioner, I'll try and answer that. Is with the development, they have to pay for anything that is going to be their impacts. So we do an analysis and use our models that we have available, the best information that we have out there, to be able to determine how much capacity is going to be needed based on the zoning and what's going to be built out there, so that they will have to construct the lift station that's going to go in, the force main, and then the mains, and then any other upgrades or improvements to that system down the road. If we have to go in there and replace the water mains or replace the sewer, would come from our regular capital improvement plan that we have out there. So once they do their impacts and pay for that, then it's basically a rate fee, and then it's going to be the capital improvement plans coming onto the city, set by priorities by the commission.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission? Comments or questions?
Well, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Perriman looked like he wanted to say something. He's certainly welcome to do so now if he wishes.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner.
Mr. Fever, public comments have been closed. Commissioner Fever.
I'm sorry, I did not know public comment had closed on us. I apologize. My error.
Yes. Any other comments from the commission?
Not to belabor things, can the commissioner ask somebody to comment during the commissioner's comments? It's just a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Fever.
Well, I did drag Mr. Perriman up here, and I know he did want to say something, and so he could say something on my time, if that's all right with him. He doesn't have to.
Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner.
I would move to approve a resolution of intention to annex a 36.55 acre parcel described as tract B1 as shown on document number 3203658 and adjacent rights of way into the city of Helena, Montana, and established conditions for annexation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion from the commission? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Fever.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Move to approve second passage of an ordinance amending City of Helena Ordinance Number 3097 and amending the official zoning map for the City of Helena for a zone change from CLM Commercial Light Manufacturing District to RO Residential Office District for lots 33 through 40 of Block 5, Lot 6 through 12A of Block 4, Lot 13A through 15 of Block 4, and Lot 33 through 40 of Block 4 and from B2 General Commercial District to R Residential Office District for Lot 29 through 32 of Block 4, all of which properties are in Woodland Park addition to the City of Helena, Montana. Interim Manager Jordan.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is the final passage of an ordinance for a zone change from CLM to RO, as you just read, in the Woodlawn Dunbar neighborhood. This is the neighborhood that the city annexed, about 10, 12 years ago, maybe even more, that's adjacent to the county fairgrounds. And Mr. Alvarez is on for the staff presentation.
Commission discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioner. Good evening. My name is Michael Alvarez, and I'm a city planner with the Community Development Department. As was just stated, my item is final passage of a zone change from CLM Commercial Light Manufacturing and B2 to RO Residential Office for property located in the Woodlawn Park Addition. I would like to make mention that there have been 2 additional public comments since first passage that were received this evening after 5 p.m.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Alvarez.
So,
any other comments?
Here we go. Oh, sorry. Since this was already heard, I just want to say, City Commission did already approve first passage, and the review was conducted, and just wanted to get over to my comments. It was Larry Levine and Missy Levine who own Levine Auto Care Center at the corner of Mitchell and Dunbar Avenues, and Jeff Christensen, who owns property at the corner of Dunbar and Green Meadow Drive. These are all auto related businesses. One other note was that the water and sewer assessment that I had talked about in the first presentation, I wasn't sure when that had occurred or whether or not it had finished. It is in fact complete. And I'll take your questions.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the commission? Do you have any public comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor. I do have one individual with their hand raised.
Okay,
Claire Swain.
you have the floor, Claire.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, I see. I lost controls, but I guess it's because it's a public meeting. I've never been in something like this. My husband is Michael Root, and he would like to talk about the zoning here.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say the lack of notice on these meetings. I've received a letter and one other business, but as far as there's 6 other businesses that haven't received one letter from Michael Alvarez on any of this zoning change. I really think they should have been notified. Not one person. I've had to go around and talk to the people and tell them what's kind of been going on. And the zoning commission passed the first zoning, and there hasn't been anybody that's received notice that of the zoning change, other than myself and Jeff up on Green Meadow Drive. The first meeting, they had the wrong number for the Zoom meeting sent by Michael Alvarez. The second meeting, I received a letter, and Jeff up at the car lot on Green Meadow received a letter. No phone calls, no letters were sent to any of the other 6 businesses down here. The third meeting, Michael Alvarez called me at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday afternoon and said there was a meeting Monday. which was Valentine's Day. And we all had things planned for Valentine's Day and couldn't make the meeting. So tonight's meeting, I was notified 2.5 hours before the meeting. So this lack of work done by this planning commission is, incompetent is what the way I would call it. He's not sending out anything and not getting any response from any of the other businesses. The two that responded tonight didn't have a clue of the meeting until I went up there at 4:30 and talked to them and said there was a meeting tonight. That's when they called and left whatever they left, what they just said there, and didn't say if they were opposed or what, but I've sent my protest letter in a long time ago, and it's not the zoning change on the one lot. I had a protest with changing 7 CLM lots for one person wanting to change it to RO. The people that are directly involved were the businesses that I described that, and they're right next to this property that they want to change. And in order to ever expand those businesses, they have to have CLM property, and the city is trying to eliminate the property for future expansion for those businesses. Like I said, lack of notice, it's incompetent. There's no other way to explain it. And really all that I have to say.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any other public comments?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no other hands raised online, and I have no written comment on the line either.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a couple questions first?
Please.
Okay, thank you. So 2 questions, I think probably both for Mr. Alvarez. I know that you talked about this at the last meeting, but I think just given that this has had more participants, it sounds like might be worth reviewing one more time. Can you explain the public notice process and who in the area receives a direct notice? And then second, can you talk a little bit about how a change in zoning comes to the commission, and in this circumstance, obviously not city or commission driven? I guess review those 2 items, and then I might have some follow-up.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Originally, for the background on this one, an applicant came forward wanting to put a home on the lot at 109 Willow Avenue. After some conversations, they had put in a zone change. After some conversations with city staff, a larger zone change in the area was recommended. City staff, myself, then sent out flyers, called neighbors in the area, and set up a meeting in person for neighbors in the area. We are required in Montana state law for a zone change to notify neighbors within 150 feet of a property. It was seen as more appropriate to invite everybody in the Woodlawn Dunbar neighborhood. So everybody in the neighborhood received that letter and that invitation out to the neighborhood meeting that was held in person up at the county fairgrounds. That's where the first 7 properties were. So that's where the first 7 properties that were CLM were proposed to be changed to RO. neighbors within 150 feet of that area received letters, sign was posted, and a legal ad was printed in the IR for the first meeting. The Michael Root was alluding to what was posted and sent out in the letters for the first meeting had the wrong Zoom link put on it. So a new posting, the conversation was tabled for the following month. New letters got sent out to everybody and a new sign was posted with the correct information. So on that neighbor list, the people that were opposed and voiced their opinion tonight were sent letters to the addresses that we have on file. Is about all I can speak to on that. So that zoning commission actually happened twice and was and then another property wanted to come in, an 8th property, and so there was another opportunity for neighbors to come in on that one. Again, though, that property was over sort of on the east side of things. It was an individual property. Notifications went out to neighbors within 150 feet of that property. And then it's taken forward to City Commission with public notification again for that.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, can I have one follow-up? Thank you. Appreciate that explanation, Mr. Alvarez. My final question is that are any of the lots that are being proposed to have a zoning change owned by commercial businesses who are opposed?
Thank you, Commissioner Dean. Yeah, none of those lots are owned by those commercial entities. They are currently all inhabited except for 109 Willow Avenue with single dwelling units. And all of which are legal non-conforming in that use. So this is really a matter of trying to get a zone type that matches the use of those properties. None of the businesses in the area that are CLM and need that zoning or none of the businesses in the area period are having their zone changed. I would disagree with the notion that there's not still room to change zones or for those businesses to grow. And if that were to happen, they are more than welcome to work with our department.
Thank you.
To get that figured out.
Mr. Mayor, a quick comment, please. I just have to voice my concern that I'm a bit troubled insofar as just the public outreach. We had expressed at the first passage and then now at the final frustration on the part of adjacent property owners that are sort of feeling like they've been left out of the conversation. And I don't think, there are any answers that I can find out tonight as to why, nor is it appropriate, I suppose, for this meeting, but I just did want to echo their frustration in what they experienced through this process. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Please go ahead.
I don't want to actually, as a commissioner, I don't think the other commissioners either want to have somebody call in at the last moment and say, this didn't work for me and I wasn't appropriately notified. And I think it's unfair the way the things turned out and cast aspersions on how our staff is going about its business. I think those are all troubling things. And I bet staff is as troubled by that as I am. So I have a question. And you know, if it's too late to do this, it's too late to do it. But is there any way to table this motion until some subsequent regular meeting, like 2 weeks down the road? So that staff can reach out one more time to the folks that have expressed concerns and feel that they were cut out of the action at an earlier time. And I asked that question knowing fully well that the very first hearing we had on this, it seemed like there was a fairly large contingent of folks in the neighborhood who supported the annexation, the zoning changes. And so I'm a little surprised that there are folks that were not aware, apparently from their, at least their testimony, that they did not know. So I'm just asking that question. I'm not going to make that motion if in fact it's not in order.
Mayor Collins, Commissioner Fever, the commission can certainly consider and pass that motion tonight. I would seek some guidance as to what more the staff is supposed to do in terms of public notification, given the volume of notice and hearings that were conducted on this. Mr. Alvarez went above and beyond what state law requires. And as he stated, the opposition you are hearing from is not from the property owners who wish to have their property rezoned to match what they are actually using their property for. So if we can get some guidance on how we should move forward, we can certainly implement that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any final discussion from the commission? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, then I'll move to table this for a month's consideration. And cognizant of what you just said, City Manager, I concur. I think staff did what it's supposed to do. It reached out, it had a public meeting. That's with the folks that are directly affected by this. But at the same time, I don't want folks to say the commission didn't hear a complaint and it rejected it just out of hand. Even though that complaint is late, and I suppose complaints come in late frequently, but it's the first time on my watch that a complaint has come in, and I am reluctant to act on this at this point in time, although I do favor the zoning change. And so that I just probably should alert those who are maybe, perhaps applauding this motion, but that'll be my motion. It's not that I think there's anything untoward going on here. I just want maybe staff can reach out to the people who have complained. I know we got like 3 letters today, and then we did have one testify here. And so perhaps because staff can reach out to those folks and go through the drill.
And Mayor, if I could, I would note that Mr. Root has already submitted written public comments to the same effect of his comments tonight. And those were before the City Commission's public hearing a few weeks ago.
So,
but I'm just a little confused. If the staff went above and beyond what's required, I don't see why we're holding this up.
I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll entertain a motion. Are we not having a motion?
Well, absent anybody moving to approve, then I'm going to bring my motion back because it's clear that we are not ready to decide this tonight. And I don't want us to err in judgment here. And it's not, again, my motion is not meant to cast any aspersion on work staff has done. I value our staff deeply. I just want to make sure that when we walk away from this, nobody feels like they were not given the opportunity to be heard, and there it be. And so if this motion could be brought forward a month from today or whenever that meeting would be, and in the interim, staff would meet with the partisans involved and see if there's some issue that perhaps needs to be revisited, although I don't know what that would be, City Manager. I just don't know.
I'll second it. And I appreciate Commissioner Fever's concerns and echo those relative to staff. It's not certainly my intent here to disparage staff, but rather just echo the frustration that has been communicated to us on adjacent property owners feeling sort of like out in left field, I guess. So I thank you.
Well, I just say too that I am confused when I hear above and beyond. That means they've done everything possible, above and beyond. So if they've gone above and beyond, I'm confused by us sitting here saying we're going to table this. I mean, if you're going above and beyond, there's nothing more you can do. There's absolutely nothing more you can do. And so why are we repeating the process? Anyway, that's where I'm at. It's been moved and seconded. And any final discussion from the commission? Madam Clerk.
So as I understand it, just for the record, Mr. Mayor, the motion is to table the final passage, correct?
That's what I believe so.
Until a date certain, and a date certain is the subsequent city commission meeting a month from now.
So April, what's the second meeting in April? Or
I would have to look that up. Interim city manager, I apologize.
how about Commissioner Fever, tabled to the call of the city manager with the goal that we bring it back in about 1 month, wherever those meetings lie.
I concur. That's a great amendment to my motion at the call of the city manager.
Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Fever.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Nay.
The motion carries 4-1.
Okay, thank you. At this time, is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission?
If I might, Mayor and
Please.
Commissioners, Mark Behrman, 1978 Reber. Anyways, I might have missed my opportunity earlier to discuss. I mean, I tried to get back up again before you guys actually voted on this resolution of intention to annex. And the owner has an issue with one of the conditions on there. Now, I don't know what the options are. I mean, he wanted me to ask to have that removed, one of the conditions, which had to do with a excuse me, I think it was item B on the conditions. It had to do with, no, item A, but it had to do with a installation of a sidewalk along the frontage road, which is on the outskirts of this property. And you know, for a lot of reasons, we just don't agree with having to put a sidewalk along the perimeter. Has to do with, I mean, there are, I guess, in our estimation, pedestrian connectivity all the way through the project and all around the outside of the project, but we didn't feel that sidewalks were appropriate on the frontage roads itself. It has to do with cost, has to do with safety issues, has to do with different things, but a lot cost. And I think we had a price tag. I'm not sure where or where that came from, that condition of the sidewalk along the frontage road, but there are sidewalks along the north side, along the collector road that we're putting in, along the east side of the property, along that collector road that we're putting in, and interior sidewalks on one side of the road all through the project, which allows for pedestrian access all through that. And I believe we had a price tag of about $750,000 just to add sidewalks along that frontage road. Discussed it with MDT and they wanted to make it very clear to us that that wasn't their desire to have. You know, they won't say if they want sidewalks in or not, but it's an MET road. So we were going to ask to have that condition removed from the resolution of intention to annex. But I don't know if there's a process later on.
And that's what I'm about to find out from Attorney Coates. Procedurally, what can we do? City Manager Jordan.
Yeah, Mayor Collins, commissioners, what I would recommend is, you know, the condition is generally meet engineering standards, which require, and city code also requires installation of sidewalks with a building permit. So perhaps the more appropriate procedure would be to either the applicant can request a variance from the installation of sidewalks, or when we come back for annexation, the final resolution for annexation, amend the condition. Otherwise, it's unusual to ask the commission to grant a variation or deviance from the engineering standards. Those are administratively performed by city staff. So I don't think tonight would be the decision point to not install sidewalks. It would be a variance or a change in the condition before annexation.
Mr. Perriman.
And in either case, we're still going to need to bring a variance for the sidewalks to the commission anyways in order to issue the building permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you
sir?
for that explanation. And that's what I was wondering, whether there's still a process in place, whether we can apply for a variance, you know, to get a variance from the standards or like a deviation kind of a deal. But I just wanted to get on record as saying that we don't really agree with that for a number of reasons. I mean, I've got a long list of reasons why we don't think it's appropriate. It's a redundant detail in the deal that I don't think is really needed. And I mean, there are no businesses, there are no other residents out along that section of the frontage road. We're just finishing the Queens Anne project that fronts the frontage road as well. And we did not have to put in sidewalks along that, on the frontage road on that side of the project. So I don't really know what we want them over there. It's a kind of a high-speed road, 50 miles an hour, I believe, on a corner. And I mean, it's sort of a safety issue with the owner as well, that you're trying to put a sidewalk along a high rate of speed corner. And it's the last thing, if I live in there, the last thing I'd want to do is send my kids out, you know, hiking on where, you know, traffic is going 50 miles an hour or whatever. But just for a lot of reasons, we're, you know, asking to be excused from that. And as long as there's a process with a variance later on, then I'm comfortable with that.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perriman. Is there any other person from the public wishes to address the commission? Do we have any online, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no hands raised online. I have no written public comment.
All right. Final discussion from the commission.
I thank the commission, Mr. Mayor, for being patient with me as I work my way through these protocols and processes. But I do think that it's odd that we would have a public hearing before we discuss two things we've already looked at. Just saying, there may be a way to arrange an agenda that looks a little differently, even if it's you're in a public hearing and then you go out of a public hearing, then you go to these other items. Just otherwise, I'll just have to be very alert to what you're doing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Fever. Appreciate that. Any other final comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, just one comment.
Please.
Just wanted to wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day this week.
Oh, that's this week.
It's this week.
Oh, geez. Okay. Anything else? If nothing else, this meeting is formally adjourned.